There is a toilet sitting in an Amish farmhouse in Pennsylvania that has never been flushed, never been connected to a pipe, and never once filled a room with the smell you would expect. No water runs to it. For over 100 years, families have used it daily without a single complaint. It costs almost nothing to build. A bucket, a wooden box, a seat, and a sack of dry sawdust from the mill. That is the whole machine. No water tank, no septic field buried out in the yard. Most people hear the word and recoil. A toilet with no plumbing sounds like a hole in the ground, like something from a century best forgotten. The reality is closer to the opposite, and the Amish have known it the whole time. The secret is not some buried invention or a lost blueprint. It is a single habit repeated every time the lid goes up. After each use, you reach for the sawdust and you cover what you left behind. That one motion does almost all the work. A dry, fine layer of sawdust forms a seal over the surface. Air cannot pull the smell upward, and flies cannot land on what they cannot reach. The barrier is simple physics, the kind of thing a farmer worked out long before anyone sold him a solution. It does not stink the way a roadside outhouse does, and the reason comes down to water. Smell is born from wet waste sitting still, going sour, turning to ammonia. Take the water out of the equation, and most of the stench leaves with it. The old outhouse failed because it mixed everything together and let it rot in a wet pit. The sawdust method does the reverse. It keeps the pile dry, covered, and breathing, which is exactly the condition that rot cannot survive in. There is a name for what happens inside that bucket, and it is the same thing that happens in a healthy garden bed. Aerobic bacteria, the kind that need air, move in and quietly break the solids down. They do not produce the gases that make you gag. The foul bacteria are the opposite kind. They work without air, deep in a sealed wet mass, and they are the ones that fill a pit privy with that unmistakable reek. Sawdust starves them by keeping the pile loose and full of oxygen. This is why the wood matters more than people think. Coarse shavings leave gaps, the smell escapes through. The Amish prefer a finer grind, almost like coffee grounds, fine enough to settle into every crack and form a true cap over the surface. It does not have to be sawdust at all. Dried leaves crumbled by handwork. So does peat moss, or shredded straw, or the fine dust swept from a workshop floor. Anything dry and fine enough to bury an odor will carry the load. For a people who run a sawmill on nearly every other property, the supply was already there. The waste from cutting boards became the cover for the toilet. Nothing was bought, nothing was wasted, and the circle closed itself without anyone drawing up a plan. Most modern attempts go wrong at the same spot. They treat the toilet as one bucket for everything. Mix the liquid and the solid together, and you have recreated the old wet pit, ammonia and all. The Amish understood the split long ago. Keep the urine out, or divert it away, and the solid pile stays dry. Dry waste does not smell. The moment too much liquid soaks in, the cover can no longer hold the line, and that is when a sawdust toilet earns a bad name it never deserved. People who live with one say the same thing, almost word for word. Strangers walk into the room and have no idea the toilet is even there. No tang in the air, no chemical perfume covering something worse underneath, just a faint smell of wood, like a cedar chest. Compare that to the bathroom most of us grew up with. A bowl of standing water, a wax ring that fails, a vent stack rising through the roof, and a tank that runs all night when a flapper wears thin. Each piece is one more thing that breaks. A modern toilet sends clean drinking water down the drain with every flush. Several gallons of it, treated and pumped and paid for, gone in seconds to carry away a handful of waste. The Amish looked at that arrangement and saw something close to madness. Behind that flush sits a whole hidden machine. Pipes under the street, lift stations, a treatment plant running pumps and blowers around the clock, all of it to undo what 1 gallon of water just did. The sawdust toilet skips the entire chain. None of this is theory for the Amish, it is just Tuesday. Generations have raised large families on these toilets, with no water bill for the bathroom and no plumber's number kept by the phone for the night. A line freezes solid in January. The handling is far less grim than you would guess. A 5-gallon bucket sits under a wooden bench with a standard seat on top, the same seat you already know. When it fills, you carry it out, empty it onto a dedicated pile, and rinse it once. That outdoor pile is where the real work finishes. Layered with straw and yard scraps, kept covered, it heats up on its own as the bacteria feed. A working pile gets genuinely hot at the center, hot enough to break the material down completely over time. After a year or two of sitting and turning, what comes out the other end is dark, crumbly, and sweet-smelling, indistinguishable from rich garden soil. The Amish spread it under fruit trees and along fence rows, feeding the land that fed them. That last part is what unsettles the modern mind. We were raised to see waste as a problem, to flush away and never think of again. The old way treats it as the start of next year's harvest, a resource pointed back at the garden instead of the river. In the technical sense, none of this is even a secret. The method has been written down, the buckets are sold openly, and off-grid families have used it for decades. What keeps it hidden is that no large industry has any reason to teach it to you. A toilet that never breaks, never floods, never clogs, and never sends a bill is not a product anyone can sell you twice. There is no monthly charge hiding in a bucket of sawdust, no service plan, no part to replace when it inevitably fails. Set the cost of a single modern bathroom beside it. The fixture, the rough plumbing, the connection to a sewer or a septic system buried in the yard, thousands of dollars before a single flush. The Amish version is built from scraps and a Saturday afternoon. It keeps working when the grid does not. When a storm knocks the power out and the well pump dies, a flush toilet becomes a useless porcelain bowl within hours. The sawdust toilet does not notice. It never depended on any of that to begin with. This is why preppers and homesteaders keep rediscovering it. When the comfortable systems fail, the old habits come back into focus. A bucket and a bag of wood shavings ask nothing from a utility company and answer to no flooded basement. The fear of the smell is the one thing standing between most people and trying it. That fear is real, born from memories of gas station outhouses and porta potties baking in July. The sawdust toilet works on the opposite principle, and the result is opposite too. Those bad toilets stank because they did the one thing this method forbids. They let waste sit wet and uncovered, open to the air and to the flies fermenting in the heat. Cover each deposit the moment it lands, and the whole problem never has a chance to start. The flies tell the story better than anything. They cannot smell what is sealed under wood, so they never gather and never lay their eggs in it. A covered bucket is, to a fly, just a box of sawdust with nothing to offer. Step back, and the logic is almost embarrassingly simple. Keep the pile dry, keep it covered, and keep air moving through it. They are rules a child could follow, and the entire modern sewage system exists to do badly what those few rules do for free. There is a quiet dignity in a system that small. It does not announce itself, does not need a warranty or a technician on call. It simply works year after year because it never asked for anything complicated in the first place. The Amish did not arrive at this through nostalgia. They watched the modern bathroom and asked a plain question. Does this make us freer, or does it tie us to a pipe and a monthly statement? They chose the bucket and never looked back. Freedom is the word that keeps surfacing when off-grid families describe it. Freedom from the well pump and the sewer hookup, and from the slow panic of a backed-up line on a holiday weekend with no plumber answering the phone. There is a cost, and it is honest to name it. You have to handle the bucket yourself, and you have to keep a pile going somewhere on the property. For people used to flushing and forgetting, that is a real adjustment, not a small one. For the Amish, that adjustment was never one. Tending a pile and covering a bucket fit a life already built around chores and seasons and the steady use of your own hands. The toilet is one more honest task among many, no stranger than splitting wood. Maybe that is the deeper lesson buried in a bucket of wood shavings. We traded effort for convenience and called it progress, never quite counting what the trade actually cost. The Amish kept the effort, and in keeping it, they kept the independence that came with it. The sanitation we built is a marvel of engineering, and also a leash. It works beautifully, right up until the power fails, or the pipe freezes solid. Then the marvel turns into a vulnerability, one most of us never think about until the day it finally stops. A man with a sawdust toilet has no such day coming. His system has no power supply to fail, and no utility that can shut him off for a missed payment. What he relies on is a sack of wood and his own 2 hands. That, in the end, is what the old generations were protecting. Not a toilet, but a way of living that did not hand the basics of survival over to a company. The sawdust bucket is small and humble, and it quietly hands all of that control back to you. The next time a storm takes the lights and the pump goes quiet, somewhere a plain family will use their bathroom exactly as they did the day before, untroubled, while the rest of us wait for the grid to return. They never depended on it. Maybe that was the point all along.